I came to the coast to disappear. Not in a dramatic way. No running from the law, no broken hearts behind me. Just a quiet erasing. A small town where no one knew my name. Where the ocean swallowed sound and secrets in the same way. The house I rented sat on a cliff, far from the main road. Gray wood. Big windows. Too much space for one person. But that's what I wanted. Room to breathe without being seen. Every night, the waves crashed below like something alive, something restless. I slept with the window cracked open just to hear it. To remind myself that the world was still moving even if I wasn't. On my second night there, the power went out. No storm. No warning. Just darkness. I stood in the kitchen with a candle in my hand, watching my reflection shake in the glass. And for a second, I thought I saw someone behind me. Not in the room. Outside. On the cliff path. A shape where there shouldn't have been one. When I turned, there was nothing. Just wind. Just ocean. Just my own nerves playing tricks again. The next morning, I found footprints in the wet dirt near the back of the house. Not mine. Too large. Too deep. They led from the cliff path. Straight to my door. I stood there longer than I should have, staring at them like they might move. I told myself someone had been hiking. Tourists did that sometimes. But hikers didn't come this close. Didn't stop right at someone's window. I brushed the prints away with my shoe and went inside. I didn't lock the door. I didn't want to admit what I was thinking. At the local cafe, people smiled too easily. Asked where I was from. Why I'd come alone. Lied. I said I needed quiet. I said I liked the sea. I didn't say I was tired of being known. When I walked back to the house that evening, the wind had picked up. The waves were louder. And I felt it again, that pressure at the base of my neck. I didn't see him. But I knew he was there. That night I didn't light a candle. I sat in the dark and listened. The ocean. The house settling. My own breathing. Then footsteps. Low. Careful. On the wooden path outside. My heart started to pound. I stayed still. I didn't want him to know I was awake. The steps stopped right outside my window. Could feel him there. Not touching the glass. Just close enough that the air changed. Then a soft knock. Not on the door. On the side of the house. Wood against wood. Signal. I didn't answer. The knock came again. Slower this time. Like he was counting my breaths. Then his voice, low and calm through the wall. You chose a beautiful place to hide. My body went cold. And hiding, he added, only works when no one is looking for you. I didn't move until the sound of his footsteps faded back into the wind. Even then, I stayed frozen on the floor with my back against the wall, my knees pulled to my chest. I kept telling myself it was just a voice. Just a stranger. But my body knew better. It always did. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee. Real coffee. Not the cheap stuff I'd bought at the store. I followed it into the kitchen and stopped cold. On the counter sat 2 cups. Steam still rising. And between them, a folded piece of paper. My hands shook when I picked it up. You looked like you needed something warm, it said. I stared at the words, then at the door. It was locked. I was sure it was. I always checked it twice. I didn't drink the coffee. I poured both cups down the sink, watching the dark liquid disappear like it had never been there at all. After that, the house didn't feel empty anymore. Even when I was alone, I wasn't. I could feel him in the walls. In the spaces between sounds. I tried to act normal. I went to the cafe. Walked the cliff path in daylight. People see me. But even there I caught glimpses. A man leaning against a truck. Someone standing too still at the end of an aisle. A reflection that didn't move when I did. He never approached me in public. Never said a word. He didn't have to. He was patient. He let my mind do the work for him. That night when I came back, the front door was unlocked. My stomach dropped. I stood there for a long second listening. Nothing. I went inside. Everything looked the same. To the same. Like someone had touched things and put them back exactly where they were. On my bed was another note. You forget to lock up when you're tired. I sat down hard, my legs giving out. He was right. I had been tired. And careless. I stopped pretending it was coincidence. I started preparing. Kept the lights on. I slept with my phone in my hand. I even bought a small knife and hid it under my pillow. It made me feel ridiculous. But also safer. For 3 days nothing happened. No notes. No coffee. No voice in the dark. The silence stretched tight like something holding its breath. On the 4th night the power went out again. I stood in the kitchen with a candle, my reflection shaking in the window just like before. And this time he was there. Not outside. Inside. Standing at the end of the hallway. I couldn't see his face. Just his shape. Familiar. I told you, he said softly. Hiding only works when you're alone. My hand closed around the knife under the pillow. But I didn't scream. I didn't run. I don't know why. Maybe because fear can freeze you just as easily as it can push you forward. He didn't move either. We stood there in the dark, separated by the thin line of candlelight. My heart was loud in my ears. His voice was calm. Come. You're holding a knife, he said. Not accusing. Not amused. Just stating a fact. I swallowed. My fingers tightened around the handle. You won't use it, he added. You're not that kind of girl. That did something to me. Not relief. Not anger. Recognition. Like he had already read me. He took one slow step closer. Then another. I backed into the wall. The candle trembled in my hand. I'm not here to hurt you, he said. I'm here because you didn't come here to be alone. I shook my head. You don't know me. He stopped right in front of me. Close enough that I could feel his heat. That's where you're wrong, he whispered. I know exactly why you chose a place where no one would hear you if you screamed. He didn't touch me. That was the cruelest part. He just stood there, letting the words sink in. Letting my imagination do what he didn't need to. Then he stepped back. Gave me space. Like a gentleman. Sleep, he said. You look tired. And just like that, he was gone. No footsteps. No door. Just absence. I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor, shaking. I didn't sleep. I waited for him to come back. He didn't. Morning came like a betrayal. Pale and quiet. I told myself it had been a dream. But on the kitchen table was the candle. Burned almost all the way down. I hadn't left it there. The next days were worse than the nights. 'Cause now I knew what he sounded like. How he moved. How he chose his words. I caught myself listening for him even in daylight. Waiting for his voice in the wind. I hated that part of me. The part that wanted to understand him. At the cafe, I sat alone with my coffee, staring out at the sea. A shadow fell across my table. I looked up. He was standing there. In full light this time. Dark hair. Sharp eyes. A face that didn't belong in a small town like this. Mind if I sit? He asked. He didn't wait for my answer. He sat down across from me like we were old friends. You're braver in the dark, he said. But you're more honest in the light. My throat felt tight. What do you want from me? He asked. He studied me for a long moment. Then, I want you to stop pretending you don't like being seen. That night there was no knock. No footsteps. No voice. Just a message on my phone. Unknown number. You didn't scream. You didn't run. That tells me everything. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Then another message came in. You're not hiding anymore. You're waiting. I should have deleted them. I should have blocked the number. Instead, I typed one word back. Why? The reply came instantly. Because you're tired of being invisible. The moment I sent that word, I knew I'd crossed something I couldn't uncross. My phone buzzed again. Good, the message said. That was all. One word. But it felt heavier than any threat. The next day he didn't appear. Not at the cafe. Not on the cliff path. Not in reflections. The absence felt louder than his presence ever had. I kept checking my phone like it might breathe. Didn't. That night the ocean was wild. Wind slammed against the windows, rattling the old house. I stood in the kitchen with a mug of tea, watching darkness press its face against the glass. Then the power went out again. I didn't reach for a candle this time. I just stood there, letting the dark wrap around me. "You're learning," his voice said from behind me. I didn't jump. That scared me more than anything. Turned slowly. He was leaning against the doorway, relaxed, like he'd always belonged there. "You shouldn't be here," I said. "You shouldn't be alone," he replied. He moved closer, stopping a few steps away. "Not touching. Not yet. You came here to disappear," he said. "But disappearing is just another way of asking to be found." I didn't answer. My pulse was too loud. He studied my face like he was reading something written under my skin. "You're not afraid of me," he said quietly. "I am," I whispered. "Not enough." That was the truth, and we both knew it. He lifted his hand slowly, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. His fingers brushed a strand of hair from my face. Careful. Like a test. My breath caught. "You're tired of being quiet," he murmured. "And I'm tired of pretending I don't see you." The room felt smaller, warmer, dangerous. He dropped his hand and stepped back again. "Control. Always control." "Not tonight," he said. "Tonight you just stop lying to yourself." Then he turned and walked out into the storm. I didn't sleep. I replayed every word, every look, every almost touch. By morning, my thoughts were louder than the ocean. I went for a walk on the cliff path, letting the wind cut through me. I needed air. Something that wasn't him. Halfway down the trail, I found a small wooden box tucked into the rocks. My name was written on it. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a key. Heavy. And another note. "For when you're ready to stop hiding properly." I stared at the key for a long time. Then I closed my fingers around it. Not because I trusted him, but because part of me wanted to know what he was going to do with me when I stopped running. The key felt heavier than it should have, like it carried more than just metal. I didn't know what it opened, but I knew where it wanted me to go. That night, I followed the cliff path past my house, farther than I'd ever gone before. The wind was sharp. The ocean below roared like it was warning me. At the end of the trail stood a small, abandoned boathouse. Dark. Waiting. My hands shook as I slid the key into the old padlock. It opened with a soft, final click. Inside, the air smelled of salt and dust. One single lamp was already on, casting long shadows across the wooden floor. He was there, sitting on a crate like he'd been expecting me all along. "You came," he said quietly. "I don't know why," I replied. He stood, walked toward me slowly. "Because hiding is exhausting," he said. "And being seen feels like breathing again." He didn't touch me at first. He just stood close enough that I had to look up at him. "You think I trapped you," he said. "But you walked every step here on your own." My chest tightened. "You scared me," I whispered. "I woke you up," he corrected. The difference mattered more than I wanted it to. He lifted his hand, stopping inches from my face. Waiting for permission. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just stayed. That was enough. His fingers brushed my jaw. Testing. Then he leaned down, his mouth near my ear. "You don't belong in quiet places," he murmured. "You belong where things burn." My breath caught. I hated how true it felt. After that night, the coast didn't feel like a hiding place anymore. Felt like a beginning. I still lived in the house on the cliff. I still drank coffee at the cafe. But nothing in me was small or quiet now. He didn't follow me anymore. He didn't leave notes. He didn't need to. We both knew where the line was, and how easily I'd crossed it. I wasn't invisible anymore. Not to him. And not to myself. I came here to disappear. But what I really wanted was to be found by something dark enough to understand me.